Hello, everyone, and welcome along to what I believe is actually the fifth TII podcast of the week. We started off with the Motherwell game review on Monday night, quickly followed by the RB Leipzig preview ahead of the first leg on Thursday. Megan Cunningham joined Scott Patterson and Claire Gemmell on Wednesday night for the Rangers Women's podcast, which I think was a great listen. And then we had the guys on the TII podcast straight after the RB Leipzig first leg. Obviously a 1-0 defeat to an Angelino wonder goal. Not exactly the result we were hoping for as the game progressed, but I think we would have taken 1-0 at the start of the game, heading back to Ibrox, still with a chance. And here we are for the fifth time this week as we look ahead to another big game with Rangers taking on Celtic in the final Old Firm game of the season. We'll get into how much it matters to us and whether next Thursday matters more, I'm sure. But I'm joined by Gavin Kelly and Kyran Wallace to look ahead to the game. Gavin, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. Kyran, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Just another big game after big game for Rangers. So, yeah, that's what it's all about.
It absolutely is, and we would bite your hand off every year to be playing big games at this stage of the season, so I don't think we can complain. We're recording this on Friday night, about 24 hours after Rangers' game against Leipzig. Gavin, how are you feeling 24 hours on? I felt straight after the game I was a wee bit gutted that we didn't get away with the 0-0 that I felt we deserved, and sort of came back to Ibrox in the driving seat, but I think overall, losing by one goal, I would have snapped your hand off for that before the game.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's the general consensus, that we just wanted to come back and still have the sort of the ability to qualify and go through and hope that there's still something we could do about it. The actual performance itself, I mean, we could see within the first 30 seconds with the shape what the game plan was going to be. It was actually for the people that have moaned before about Van Bronckhorst. I don't know what we're trying to do. I can't see assists. Last night was as clear a day for what we were trying to do, and it was almost similar to the sort of thing that we saw with Michael Beale and Gerrard in the past with the 4-3-3 and trying to get them to go down the flanks. And it was working because they weren't sure what to do for most of the time. As you said, just the frustration of the goal that we lost. I mean, if we were saying if Nkunku had scored when he went round McGregor, it probably wouldn't have felt as bad, the 1-0 getting beat, but the actual goal that we lost kind of leaves a sour taste. But like I said, it's if you'd been offered 90 minutes at Ibrox, just need to win the game. I'm saying just, but you need to be a good side, but win at Ibrox, you're in the Europa League final. I'd snap your hand off for that.
Absolutely, Kyran. We would have taken that one win at Ibrox away from a European final. You would take that every chance. You had a bit of a different experience to most, I think, last night watching the game. You were actually in a view cinema, taking the 90 minutes. How was that?
It was a different experience. The last time I was in the cinema, we had Batman on the go, so I wasn't quite sure every Saturday we follow was being sung then. So. It was different. Definitely the way to go. I like the cinemas coming up with something different. The fact we're in a semi-final, a major European tournament, you like to do these things a wee bit differently so you remember them. So yeah, it was definitely an excellent experience. But as far as the game went, I being honest, I can't say I was too disappointed coming out. I know their goal was a bit of a sucker punch, but I said at half-time I'm delighted with nothing each, and agreeing with Gavin that Van Bronckhorst got it spot on. With tactically, the first half, the shape was brilliant. The second half, he tweaked it slightly. We're going with the 5-4-1. I maybe wouldn't have moved Aribo away from the centre. Sakala was the right change, but I probably would have put him out on the right and left Aribo in the middle because he seemed to hold things in and it was sticking, kind of like we get with Morelos when you launch a ball up and you're trying to get a break from defending. Aribo was making it happen, but that's probably my only negative for the game. I thought we were like warriors out there, defended well, unlucky not to get the clean sheet, but It's all to play for back at Ibrox, and I think every single Rangers fan had said the same thing. If we can keep this tie alive and take it to Ibrox, it's game on, and it most certainly is.
Absolutely, and it's also a big game next Thursday. But before we get to that big game next Thursday, we have Celtic at Celtic Park as the final Old Firm game of the season. Kyran, I'm going to stick with you. How much does the fact that we have that second leg against Leipzig and we're still in with a shout of making it to the European final, how much will that become a factor heading into the game on Sunday?
For me, massively. I think in football terms, the old cliche is you deal with one game at a time. But you've got to deal with the here and now. And like I've just said, we are still much in the tie against Leipzig. We are possibly a 90 minutes, 120 minutes away from a European final, which is surreal that I'm even saying that. And what I was saying to one of the guys when I came out last night was, although we want to beat Celtic every time we play them, regardless of what's happening in the league right now, I think Van Bronckhorst has to pick his team for Thursday before he picks his team for Sunday. With guys in mind that won't start on Thursday and trying to give some legs a rest. I think it's a wee bit unfortunate that Balogun's not available for Sunday, because I think he would have been one, because I thought the back five last night was excellent. He's one I would have stuck straight in the team sheet because he's a great asset to have for us. But yeah, I definitely think he should be picking his team for next Thursday before picking Sunday, and everything else should work around it.
Gav, would you be in agreement with Kyran there in terms of he should be looking at next Thursday and what he wants to do there before he starts picking his team for Sunday?
Without going to individuals, I think he can kind of do both, because he'd already prepared for this week by some of the players he rested against Motherwell. I know we went down to 10 men, but if you look at the players that didn't come off the bench, Arable came on for a wee while, but Jack and Lundstrom and Kent didn't play in that game. And he'd obviously looked at this next week as being like, this week's our season. So I think the Motherwell game, he's kept key players, and I think he'll maybe do something similar. I mean, it's a big call not to play Kent in an Old Firm game, but I think he'll look at like Kent, Jack, and looking at boys like that. Maybe so. I think there'll be some changes, but I think the way that Van Bronckhorst's talking is that they still believe that if we win this game, it's not quite game one, but we need to keep them honest, sort of thing. So I think they're looking at this game, the next game, and then we've got 2 home games in the league after that. That whatever happens in the next 2 games, if boys need a rest, they can rest in those 2 games, because if things don't go to plan on Sunday anyway, the league's done. So Ross County and Dundee United doesn't matter. So I know the Thursday night game's the one that could lead to sort of a European final, but I just think they can rest enough players without weakening the team too much, I think.
Yeah, it's been a bit strange, I guess. I don't know how you guys have felt in terms of, I've not really thought about the Old Firm game until I started doing the prep work for this podcast tonight, and that's not usually the case. Normally in the lead up to Old Firm games, you're from the Monday onwards, you're kind of thinking about it and how it's all going to play out. Kyran, going by Gio's press conference, and Gav just kind of touched on it, it doesn't actually seem he's thinking the same way as the fans. Some would suggest not for the first time this season, but it doesn't seem he's thinking that way, and he's kind of suggested that it will be a strong team on Sunday. Looking back, obviously the last time we played them was when in the Scottish Cup semi-final. We beat them 2-1 in extra time. We looked like the fitter team. We looked like the stronger team on that occasion, despite playing 120 minutes a couple of days before. Do you think, in terms of how we set up and style of play, we'll take a very similar approach to that game?
I'm not so sure. Like Gavin says, I think we can rest guys and alter the team without the team being weakened too much, if I've said that right. The last game, looking back at that, when you look to guys like Davis, Arfield, Sakala, they all made massive contributions to the game, and there's nothing to say that they can't do that at Parkhead. I'd like to see start with a style similar to how we started last night, where we packed the back line, kind of, I don't know, a lot of folk might be screaming at the screen now saying you're completely wrong, we let them come on to us the last time, but I think that style suited us last night, to hit on the break, and I think we could do that at Parkhead. I think we were a wee bit naive to leave wingers too high up the park at Parkhead the last time we were there, but we've got nothing to fear against that Celtic team. We're a very good team with great experience and certainly nothing to fear, so we've just got to go into the game and play as best we can to go out and win, because it is always good to beat them. Let's be honest, regardless of the circumstances, and I think we all know and fear how the season's going to go, and it's been all our own undoing, to be perfectly honest. So if we come out all guns blazing, stick to a plan and stick to a style, I think we could take the 3 points. It's a hard place to go, but I think we can.
Gav, one of the main successes we had in that Scottish Cup semi-final was the role that Calvin Bassey played in that formation and within that game, in terms of pressing forward onto Tom Rogic the first 55 minutes, and then Matt O'Reilly in the second half and into extra time. He really kind of nullified Celtic's creativity on that front. It was another colossal performance from Calvin Bassey last night against Leipzig. Would you expect him to take on a similar role on Sunday?
Yeah, I've kind of spoken about this week already, actually. I think the difference is that if Kyogo starts for them, his movement's better. He tends to play, he'll not run around like a headless chicken. So if Bassey leaves a space, whoever's covering, whether it's Lundstrom or Jack or whoever's playing in the middle of the park, they have to fill that hole quickly. If Bassey does go out into midfield to follow somebody and put pressure on whoever's their sort of main attacking sort of midfield threat, because if we do leave gaps, it's the one weakness I think Goldson's got, is that he's not great at following runners. He tends to sort of try and second guess where a ball's going to go rather than actually staying with the threat. So if Bassey leaves Kyogo and there's a space behind him, I'd be worried about that. But again, I think what we saw last night almost makes you think, oh, we maybe could go with that again, because it wasn't what we tried at Parkhead the first time. Last night was totally different with the back five. And if you change slightly, sort of whoever we've got up front, then it could work. But I don't think it's the thing with Van Bronckhorst now. With Gerrard, we knew what we were going to do. It's 4-3-3, and you could almost pick the team yourself. Whereas I think that helps us to a certain extent. And I don't think we're as easy to plan against now. So I don't know what Van Bronckhorst will do. That is an option now for what we did last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyran, I potentially disagree a bit with Gav in terms of Gav's obviously picked out Kyogo and Kyogo's movement and pace, which obviously is a danger, and we know that. But I actually felt heading into the semi-final more confident up against the pace of guys like Maeda and Abada and that side of things than I did when we were taking on Giakoumakis, who's more of a physical presence, which we don't really seem to deal well with at all. What's your view on that? Would you rather we took on someone like Kyogo with pace rather than Giakoumakis with his physicality? I thought actually last night against Leipzig we dealt pretty well with Nkunku's pace, albeit he was still able to create a couple of chances because he's obviously a top class player.
Yeah, I think you see with Nkunku as well, it started to drop deeper and deeper into the game. I think that was coming out of frustration from how well the centre-backs and especially Goldson was dealing with him. Bassey took on a similar style last night, I noticed as well, where he was almost going in to shut down was it Danny Olmo and Forsberg when he came on the second half, where he was sort of pressing that centre attacking mid to stop them getting on the turn and sort of playing the slide through balls. But when you're referencing who would you rather go against, Kyogo and Maeda, just going by what I seen with my own eyes in the semi-final, I felt like Ange got it wrong for them when he brought Kyogo on and put Maeda out to the left, I think it was. Yeah, it was the left. Because then Kyogo didn't offer the same press as Maeda offers them, which kind of hurries up the play, because we like to build from the back through guys like Bassey, Lundstrom, Goldson. These guys started to have a bit more time on the ball, and and then our goal, Arfield's goal actually came from it. Made out in the left, sort of let Arfield go. The press wasn't very good from Kyogo, and over the top went the ball from Goldson onto Tav's chest, from what the goal came from. So, being really honest, I'd rather they did have Kyogo as opposed to Maida up front, because it would let us build out from the back.
Yeah, Gav, would you? Kieran's obviously spoken about Maida and Kyogo there. I've seen some polls on Twitter from people asking whether it will be Kyogo or Giakoumakis. It's through the middle. Who would you feel more confident in us facing, and why?
It's a strange because they're both good in the box in terms of their movement, at finding space. So it's, if you stop the supply, then it almost becomes, they're quite similar in that respect. Is that I don't think there's sort of players that will create something from nothing. So like Edward used to be able to do, he could drop 5 yards of a centre half and pick the ball up himself and do something. Whereas I don't think that pair can. So they need the service, but they offer a different threat. But it's quite similar, if that makes sense, in terms of it's, for them it's about the movement in the box and getting the service into them. So the key thing from our point of view is whoever they play is stopping the supply, and that's whether it's fullbacks getting out quickly to the wingers or midfielders doubling up and protecting the fullbacks as well. Because as we saw at Parkhead the last time, they were getting round the back us almost every time they went forward. So that's why, after watching last night, the John Lundstrom dropping in might actually be an option, because as we saw last night, they didn't really get behind us. And that's when when defenders are having to watch one direction for where the ball's coming from and over their shoulder for where the striker is, that's when it becomes harder. But if you keep them in front of you, it becomes a wee bit easier to defend. So same with Kyogo and Giakoumakis, if they're making the runs in front of them, it's easier to defend against. Whereas if they get turned and they're having to watch their shoulders, I think that's when you might have a problem.
Yeah, I think so. We start talking about the sort of Rangers starting lineup, or how we think we'll set up. I think, like you said earlier, Gav, if Balogun had been fit, he may have came in to play at centre half. But sorry, not fit. If he had been available, obviously suspended after the Motherwell game last week. So if he'd been available, he might have come in at centre half. But I think it's likely to be the same back five as it was last night in terms of McGregor and goals, Tav, Goldson, Bassey and Barisic. I don't know if anyone has any different views on that. If you do, you can let us know when I come to you. But I think midfield, the midfield three and the front three are obviously where I think the discussion points are, particularly with Roof still out, Morelos obviously out for the rest of the season, and Aaron Ramsey out as well. Gio suggested in his post-match press conference last night that Roof and Ramsey are really looking at day-to-day in terms of their fitness, in the hope that they'll be available next Thursday. I'm very much of the opinion that wrap them in cotton wool until then. I don't think there's any point trying to risk them this weekend, even if they were half fit for 20 or 25 minutes or so. Gav, coming to you first, how do you see sort of that front six setting up in terms of the midfield and the front three?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on sort of Ramsey and Roof. If it's looking like they're going to be available for Thursday, then I would have Jack, Parabo and Kent sitting out this one. And I'd go with Lundstrom and Davis and Kamara as my three midfielders. So we've been another three, so probably then Sakala. I can't remember who else I went with. Right again. That's a bit harder. Yeah, Arfield, that was it. That's the one. So I'd have Arfield probably off the right hand side, and it's like it's just working with what you've got. So how we do it, we've not. I mean, you've seen a few folk on social media saying if Itten's fit, then you as well just put them through the middle, because at least you've got a striker then. But I don't know. It depends on who we've got available for Thursday night. I think he'll pick his team off that. But the midfield, I certainly think it'll be the surprise if it's not Lundstrom, Davis, and Kamara.
Yeah, Kieran, I'm struggling with Gav just listing that team there. I'm struggling between my head thinking, yes, you have to think ahead to Thursday night, and then hearing that team, my heart's going like, oh no, you just need to pick our strongest team and take it from there. I think, to be honest, I think in terms of my own personal picks, I would probably stick with Jack Lundstrom, and I probably would put Scott Arfield in there in the midfield, and then a front three of Kent, Sakawa, and Aribo. To be honest, I don't think I would rest anyone for that. What's your thoughts?
Very much the same as you. Like, I was right up for resting players until Gavin's run through it there. Now I'm thinking the worst. So,
by the way, I don't think that's what Van Bronckhorst will do. I think he'll go strong. I think he'll go with what Craig said there. I think that's what we're going to do.
I totally agree with you. If you put yourself in the manager's shoes for a second, he's going to pick the team that's going to win this game, and I think he's going to have it in the back of his head that we don't really want a bad result that's going to knock us off the rails almost. If we can go here, get a result, get the tails up, and go into Thursday night really confident. And let's be honest, sitting here, imagine we won tonight, we won on Sunday and then won on Thursday. How good would that be? It would be unbelievable. In terms of team selection, I'd be right up for seeing Davis starting. I'd be quite happy to see Arfield start. Sakala through the middle would give us that out ball. He's a complete wild card. None of the three of us know what he's going to do, and neither does he at times. But yeah, I think it would take their backline back a bit with the threat that at any point we could go over the top and in behind with Sakala. So yeah, maybe 2 or 3 changes, but nothing wholesale. We are restricted with, you'll probably find Lundstrom going into the back line again, because being restricted with not having the option of Balogun there. I think it might be a wee step too far to start someone like Leon King in there to put Lundstrom into the middle. So very much of the opinion that we'll see a back 5. Who plays in the middle, I'm not so sure, but I'd like to see something of the combination of Davis, Jack, one other forward line, which maybe involves Sakala and Arfield. And you never know, it might go the way the semi-final went, and we were able to rotate it when guys were playing well but looked tired, the likes of Lundstrom the second half in the semi-final. We got money's worth out of Roof, maybe too much. Even when Wright came on, he made an impression there. So there is options for guys to come in and do well there. You never know, you might see a curveball, you might even see James Sands come in. He tends to like him.
When we saw Kent, we always think like Rest and Kent, but we saw him playing 120 minutes against Braga and 120 against Celtic. He was still flying, like in injury time, 124th minute, whatever it was. He's an absolute freak of nature in terms of his fitness. So I always kind of think, oh, you'll rest Kent because he's our most important player. But again, as I spoke about at the start, Kent got a rest against Motherwell. So maybe you'll look at Kent can play these 3 games easy. So, and then rest after that. So
yeah, I think there's always the fact that Celtic fear Ryan Kent as well, that always plays into it, and that might naturally push them back a little bit as well. I think I saw from their press conference today that Juranovic is still out from the injury he got in the semi-final, so that might even be more of a reason to push Kent up and threaten their fullbacks from that perspective. Gav, one question I wanted to ask, I guess, because we've all kind of spoken about potentially Sakala through the middle. I thought Joe Aribo did really well in that kind of false 9 role he went into at the start of the second half. For the 25 minutes or so he played that. Do you think that's a potential option for Sunday with Kent out left and then Sakala out right rather than through the middle?
Yeah, there's a big chance. Again, it's if we have like Kamara, Davis, Lundstrom or something like that as your 3, there's no reason why we couldn't put Arbo through the middle. I was just trying to think, did we finish the cup semi with Wright, Sakala and Kent as our front 3?
Yeah, we did.
Because that caused them quite a bit of bother, just the sheer pace, and because we'll get space around, and if like Juranovic he's a good player, and he's with Carter Vickers, that's their 2 best defenders for me. So if he's out straight away, if we've got the 3 boys with pace, it'd be interesting. But Arbo certainly did enough last night to suggest that if that's what Van Bronckhorst wanted to do, it would, if anything, it maybe save his legs a little bit as well. If he wouldn't have to do as many shuttles covering him sort of from midfield sort of thing. So it's definitely an option if he's got, I said, Kent and Sakali either side of him. It'd be certainly be interesting to watch. I mean, there's no doubt his ability on the ball in terms of being able to hold it up, and he's good at sort of winning the ball back as well. So tends to do his best but further up the pitch. Well, he did take a couple of wrong options last night when there's boys in space, but that's another story.
And one just final point before we go into sort of score predictions and that side of things. We heard a lot of noise after the Scottish Cup semi-final about how physical Rangers were and how aggressive we were and tackling. John Beaton's the referee. He tends to try and let the game flow a wee bit. He tends to lose control of big games as well when it comes to that side of things. Do you think we'll maintain that sort of aggressive approach?
Absolutely. We spoke earlier on the sort of aggressive press that Bassey pushes onto their sort of highest midfielder as well. Lundstrom, the last game, it was absolutely beautiful to see how much he put it about and how physical he's with against them. Ryan Jack's got it in his locker as well, and we should be a physical, aggressive team. You think back to a lot of games pre-Gerrard and we were getting bullied off them. Let's not beat around the bush. We weren't physical enough. A lot of guys sort of shrunk in games like this as soon as the tackles were coming out. We need a team that need to be physical against them. You're not going to win games against them if you're not aggressive against them. So absolutely, we need to be up for it. We need to be physical. We need to be aggressive, and we need to be great. We need to be brave at times and go and press. I think that worked at Hampden. That we were aggressive with the press as well and try to force Joe Hart to go as long as he could, knowing that our centre backs are the sort of physical type that like to come strong and hard and make their mark on the striker. And if they do go with Kyogo through the middle, it more plays into the hands of that strategy and tactic that we're going to win everything in the air, we're going to regroup at the back if they start to go long. Whereas I think if they were to start Giakoumakis, it would be slightly different because it gives them that physical edge.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, but I do agree. I think we need to maintain that physicality and keep going aggressive with that press. Gavin, I'm going to come to you first. Looking ahead to Sunday, how do you think it'll pan out in terms of scoreline?
It depends on the team selection. I don't know. Like as I said before with Van Bronckhorst, it's just you don't know how we're going to set up, so it makes it a wee bit harder. I think we'll be looking to right a few wrongs from the last time we were there. I'd like to think that'll be part of the team talk. Some of the goals we've lost have been sort of the best, so I think there'll be more attention on that. So I'm going to go for 1-0 Rangers.
I like the sound of that. Kyran, what about yourself? How do you see the scoreline shaping up on Sunday?
I'm right in the same boat as Gavin. I'm going 1-0 Rangers, 97th minute, Sakala.
I thought you were going to say Starfelt on goal there. I thought we were going down that route of things. I'll round off. I think a Rangers win. I'll be a bit different and say 2-1. I think they always kind of pose as a threat, even if it's a jammy goal or two here and there. Right. Well, I think that's us for this preview. So, Gavin, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers, thanks, Greg. Cheers.
And Kyran, thanks very much for joining us again.
No problem. I hadn't given the game a second thought before now, but you've got me right up for it. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Perfect for a Friday night. It'll be the longest Saturday of your life. So thanks very much, everyone, for listening. I guess all that's left for me to do is to remind you to like this video, to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel, and also to remember to click the notifications button so you get an email every time we upload a new podcast. Fingers crossed for 3 points for Rangers on Sunday and another positive performance heading into the second leg against Leipzig. Until next time, see you later.